Hi guys, today I've decided that my jade plant needs potting down. All of my other jade plants are doing just fine, but this one's suffering a bit, and I think it's because I have it in a huge pot. The top of the plant is not that big, and I have a feeling that when I dig these out, the roots also are not going to be very big. And the problem you run into when you put too much soil around a succulent plant is that it's going to hold the moisture for too long. So I'm going to go ahead, take this out, and pot it down to this size, which is quite a bit smaller, unless I find the roots are too big for that. But today I'm going to use the oyster shell, which I've been using lately for good drainage, like a grit. And then I'm going to use the seed starting mix just because it's what I have, but it does say that it's a good mix for root development, and I have a feeling what I'm going to find in here when I dig it up is that it doesn't have some good strong roots. So I think a mix with the grit and the oyster shell would be good draining and also promote more root growth so this plant can have a healthier setup. So I'm just going to eyeball it, and I've been potting down a lot of my plants. I just feel like maybe I've put them in pots that are too big. So let's see if we can get this one in a better setup. And I'm just eyeballing half and half. I want a good draining mix. And there's a little bit of moisture just from the bag, but I will be waiting after I repot this for about a week, just in case I damage any roots. I'm going to go ahead and wait. The other nice thing about oyster shell is it gives the pot some weight, so if you have a taller plant, it's really going to keep it from tipping over. So I'm being very generous with the oyster shell. And it does say it has calcium too, so that's good for plants. But I think this is going to be a good mix. And a little more. I'm really going crazy here. I'll probably have some leftover soil. Maybe I'll plant up something else. But here we go. I have a really good mix. I think that looks good for a succulent plant. Let me show you what I have here. You can see there's loads of grit in there. Grit and dirt together, but it's a really good ratio of grit for my succulent plant. So let's go ahead and take, this is such a beautiful pot. I will use it for a larger plant. But let's go ahead and see what we have when I pull it out. Okay. As you can see, this is really not a very big plant root. And it was in that gigantic pot, and one side of it rotted down. So I've already lost half of that plant. So I'll put it there for now, and I'll take the other big one out. And again, look, it's way small, way smaller than the pot it's in. So that is actually a ridiculous amount of soil. I really shouldn't have done that. And it's really good to reevaluate things when you see that a plant isn't thriving. This could also use more light. I may put it in a brighter spot, but I think predominantly the big problem that I have with this, with it having pieces rot, is that it's just in too much soil. So let's take care of that problem today. These are just some smaller rooted babies. I guess I'll just tuck them in around the sides, just because I don't want a whole bunch of little plants. I'll tuck these in. And look at that. Look at all that soil. I'm going to put that out in the garden. It's probably pretty spent, but that is just way too big of a pot for these. And I'm hoping that this isn't too big as well. But given that I'm putting a lot of grit in here, I think we're going to be okay on that. So let's start by putting some of the soil in. Lots of good drainage here. Maybe I have too much soil. Okay. Let me put this one in here and this one on this side. I think structurally it's going to look nicer as well. And you do want to remove any rotten parts. That looks okay. It's pretty dry. And I'll tuck this little guy in here. Hopefully that'll take off. This one's even dehydrated. Put that over here. And I can tuck those in once I get the soil. But this is just such an easy way to help your succulents do better if they are suffering and dying back due to obvious rot. I also don't need to water this for a week or two because it's clearly holding water in its leaves. They're nice and plump at the moment. Alright, so I want to make sure I have everything the way I want it so I can leave it to set up and root in. I think we have enough soil in there. I'm going to tuck these in. They just have the tiniest bit of root, but I think in this mix they're going to go ahead and send out some nice roots. Going to bury several sections under the soil because the roots come out of where the leaves used to be, out of the leaf node area. So I'll just tuck those in. I'm going to add a little grit on top just to hold everything solid. And I'll tuck these in. If they don't root, it's no big deal. But I think that looks right away a lot better. It's going to settle down in there. The soil will settle down. I'll put a little grit on top to hold everything in place. And I'm going to be careful how I water it once I do resume watering. I'm just going to make sure it's very dry before I do any watering. So guys, I'm a lot happier with the way that looks immediately. And hopefully the plant will be a lot happier in this drier setup with less oil and more grit. I think little by little I'm going to have to redo a lot of my plants. Like I said, if any of these sprouts don't take, I hope this is in camera, in the shot. If any of these don't take, I'm not going to worry about it. So guys, there it is, my repotted jade. And it's looking a little sparse now, but I think it's going to bounce back. Hopefully by next spring I'll have a healthier looking plant. I want to thank you so much for joining me and for subscribing, and I hope you have a really good day.